Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. Thank you very much for joining this Construction Buzz webinar. And today we're joined by Richard Moyle from Think Project. So welcome, Richard. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Nathan. Nice to be here. Hi, everybody.
Brilliant. So today's webinar, we're looking at leveraging BIM for asset owners at handover, a simple data record to reflect built assets. So Richard's going to join us in a minute and run us through a demonstration, I believe. But before that, I just thought I'd introduce this platform to you if you haven't used it before. You can ask us questions on here in the panel. Hopefully you've got a panel on your screen with questions. You can also raise your hand if you want to actually ask Richard a question directly, and I can turn on your microphone towards the end of the webinar. So please do that and get involved. I'm sure Richard will be keen to talk to you. So joining us today, Richard has had 20 years of working on a variety of projects in the construction sector, challenging and advising organisations to digitalise their processes and embrace new practices. He's going to offer an in-depth industry expertise and insight around mobile and field management to assist Think Project sales team with the industry knowledge and help scale the sales process. He's passionate about the sector and wants to be at the forefront of a real industrial change, which I think, you know, we seem to be seeing that. And but obviously, faster and quicker would always be, I guess, a good motto to live by. So, Richard, welcome. Hope you're well. And yeah, I'm going to hand straight over to you, as I say, and then I'll come back at the end to take some questions.
Sure, no problem at all. Thank you, Nathan. So let's share my screen here. Make sure everything as it should be. So we're gonna start today with just a handful of slides. I'm always very conscious when we're presenting to not do death by PowerPoint here. So I just want to kind of lay the foundations a little bit for those that are not aware who Kairnial are, who Think Project are. We'll just spend 4 or 5 minutes here going through that, and then we'll focus the bulk of today's webinar actually as a live demonstration, and we'll show you how we can, or how today we help our clients as asset owners to start to get the benefit of their BIM information, but we'll kind of expand much beyond what most people consider as BIM as, which is 3D models. So we'll go into this in some level of depth. As Nathan said, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and then we'll leave quite a bit of time at the end for us to collect through them and go through those questions and answer anything that you may have. So from Nathan already explained who I am. So my background is typically implementing project control, CDEs, field management tools globally for large contractors, for large project teams, but also for asset owners as well. From Think Project's perspective, for those that don't know who we are, we're the leading provider of construction technology across Europe. We've got a variety of different platforms available that service the entire kind of life cycle of built assets. An ever-expanding list of regions that we're supporting and offices around Europe. Lots of investment going in right now, and we like to think that we're at the kind of real forefront here of helping people to, with that digitalization transformation and journey that everybody's on, no matter what sort of scale projects or assets that we're actually trying to deliver. From a portfolio perspective, as I said, we've got a variety of different platforms that kind of span the entire asset life cycle. Clearly lots of focus around core document management and collaboration, on into BIM, on into field management, and then beyond that into project controls and into full asset management as we need to. And there's lots of webinars that we do that you can join and find out more about each of those particular products and platforms. From today's perspective, we're going to focus on our Kairnial solution, which is where I originate from. And Kairnial's really designed around being able to capture, share, connect and control bill asset information during project delivery to then be able to provide that as a digital record in a usable manner. And the key to that is usable and accessible, that then can be utilized on throughout asset delivery. So you can see kind of Kairnial spans quite a few of those different pillars that we support as Think Project, and we'll be kind of focusing very much on that platform today. From Kairnial's perspective, we, as I said, we really exist for one core purpose, and that's to make bill asset information accessible to teams, and typically to make that information accessible out in the field, whether that's during delivery and construction, or whether that's on into the operational phase of that particular asset. And this is underpinned by our web platform, which I'll show you a little bit about and explain some of the user cases that people put through there, to be able to structure all of your data. And when we're talking about data, we're talking about traditional documents, we're talking about 2D plans, and we're talking about BIM models and the resulting asset information and data that resides and is connected with them. And then we're able to allow people to manage their various quality control, compliance-based processes around equipment, around commissioning and checks and inspection type processes. And again, crucially, allowing all that to happen out in the field at source effectively. We're certainly not naive enough to believe that we can provide everything to everybody. We totally understand that there are lots of other solutions for both project delivery, project management, but asset management as well in play. And we actually developed Kairnial to be open and to be connected to those environments. So we've got an open API architecture where we're able to accept information from industry standard CDEs, both whether they're Think Project CDEs such as Conclude and TP CDE, for those that are aware, or other CDEs from other vendors such as Airconnects and other providers. Lots of our clients maybe don't have CDEs, they utilize SharePoint for a lot of their information as well. So again, we're able to kind of extend Kairnial and allow it to receive all of this handover related information from various different sources. And the other aspect of that is we're able to allow you to interrogate that data. Okay, so we're not locking the data within our platform. We're allowing you to be able to interrogate the status of various processes, the data that resides within BIM models, for example. We can make that data accessible easily to tools like Power BI, which again, a lot of our enterprise clients seem to now be turning to for their enterprise reporting. In terms of who we do this for, today's focus is very much around the asset owners. So our background is actually in the French market. We've been around for 15 years and providing effectively this type of technologies and tools and supporting some of the largest asset owners, both in residential, public sector as well. And again, you can see here a variety of those type of clients. But again, if there are any questions around who we work with or anything else I'm showing today, very happy to kind of take this offline and expand that out for you. So in terms of what we're going to look at today and use cases, as I said, our platforms are typically used throughout the entire life cycle of the delivery of assets, but also moving on into the ownership and operation of those assets. And actually, interestingly enough, although we're not going to talk about it today, in the deconstruction of those assets as well. So we kind of truly offer solutions around that whole life cycle. But today's focus will be very much around that kind of handover piece, back end of construction, because it's, you know, again, we're conscious that it's not just a very defined point in time and all of a sudden we're in handover. We like to work with our clients around progressive handover delivery, so that they can ensure that they're receiving the relevant information that then is going to become useful to them, that they need and urgently require to be able to operate and maintain, or even maybe sell that particular asset as well. So today's focus will be kind of spanning that construction into handover phase, as you can see there. So without further ado, we'll kind of get into a live demonstration here. So we're just going to remove here, go across to here. Okay, so this is we're going to start live in the web and kind of explain what we're capable of doing and how that aligns to some of the core requirements and key user cases around the digital transition of information to owners during handover. So first and foremost, sat at the heart of all of this, we've got an easily accessible web platform. Some people would call it a CDE, others will call it document management system, call it what you like. This is a central store where we can share information. That's the simplest way to consider this. Accessible really easily through username and password. So we'll get into here. And as soon as we get in, we've actually got effectively a multi-asset environment or a multi-project environment based on the phase that you're actually in. We can search through that and we'll just go into this particular space here, and then we're going to go full screen. So let's click on this. Okay, so the application's designed to be modular based on what you want to do with us. And you can see those modules reflected down the left-hand side. And we're kind of going to skip through some of these just again to kind of demonstrate the various ways that we help people share, capture and connect information throughout that construction handover and operational phase. And we're actually going to kind of start life from a very much a document management perspective. Okay, so absolutely fundamental. You know, we can talk about BIM all we like, and again, people's perception we find of BIM is often stops and starts at this is a model or this is a set of 3D models. From our perspective, from Think Project's perspective and Kairnial's perspective, BIM to us is building information. Okay, so it spans that entire data set of information that you're looking to collate, to accept, to approve, and then to ultimately utilize and need throughout the life of that asset, and obviously evolve throughout the life of that asset. Because, you know, on day one when the asset's handed over, that's just a reflection of what's there, the as is, the as built of what's there today. But very, very quickly, that starts to become out of date because we start to evolve, we start to change, we start to do additional projects against the asset, we start to do FM related activities against the asset, and all of these things generate more information. Okay, so we've got to have somewhere for that information to live. We've got to have some structure around that. And the simplest approach to doing that, or one of the approaches to doing that, is to be able to structure that in a fully configurable and customizable folder-based system. Okay, so essentially what you've got here is a fully customizable, very familiar look and feel, very robust, efficient, easy to use document management system at the heart of this. And we'll allow our clients to share, comment, review, accept any type of information they wish. We don't limit on size, we don't limit on types of information. So the vast majority of our asset owner clients start life with actually structuring the type of information that they want to collect from the project team, from the contracting team, and effectively this starts to become their, let's call it an asset-based CDA, if you like, albeit much lighter touch than you would probably see in a traditional project delivery type CDA, because the requirements are not necessarily the same. But in terms of being able to structure this, if you're aligning yourselves to ISO 19650 standards and you want to be able to reflect that within the system, then again, the system can be configured to reflect that information coming through. It can be configured to align to any naming protocols you care to consider within there. And crucially, it can be aligned to allow you to do reviews and approvals through there. So we'll give you a very quick example of this. We'll focus on this structure here. Let's just minimize this. So worth mentioning, everything you see here is tailored to you. So it's your structure, and more importantly, you can structure it yourself. So we're empowering you as our client to be able to set this up and to be able to structure this around your handover information and the way that you want to accept information. So you can see when we go into a particular area, we can choose to just quickly upload. We can upload, let's take any document we want here. Let's just drag and drop. So we want this to be easy for users to be able to get information into the system. So a simple drag and drop. You can then set up whatever type of control you wish, because let's be honest, just letting everybody drag and drop into a system doesn't necessarily help with structuring. People often want to implement naming conventions and other various controls. So you can implement that in the system. You can have the system validate how you want to name information. And crucially, you can drive any review and approval process around that information. So we'll upload this simple document into the system. That goes into the system as a version control document. So we're able to control every revision of every piece of information relating to the asset. And we can also then push that into some form of review and approval process. So again, this is not going to be a full design coordination review workflow. This is going to be potentially just an acceptance of information. Okay, so we can see there's the latest version of that particular document. If I've got multiple renditions or revisions, you can see that they nest themselves below. So you've got a full version history of all of the information. And we can also see that this has been issued for client team acceptance, or whatever we want to term it. And subject to permissions, a user's able to very easily come in here and say, yes, this is fine, thanks very much. Just save that information, and it can be as simple as that. So again, we're then providing a robust audit trail down the right-hand side of that acceptance of information in the system, and all of that transparency. So again, people talk about golden thread and who approved and kind of a digital audit trail around this information. Again, the system's kind of designed around that concept. But fundamentally, structure the information you wish, receive it from your various different supply chain partners, whether that's general contractor, consultants, or whomever, and then put that through very basic review and approval processes within the system. Really efficient way, and I would say almost exclusively every one of our asset owner based clients, this is what they're doing on a daily basis. And crucially, if you've got an entire estate or portfolio here that you're having delivered, being able to set this up once and then being able to replicate that across every asset very, very rapidly, we see that as a powerful part of our offering. Yes, if you want to get into more detail and you want to start being able to review that information, you've got all the capabilities to be able to look at that online. If you want to start doing more detailed, collaborative reviews, markups, annotations, you've got all that capability built into there. But do not underestimate the fundamental of the asset owner having a system for them to receive this information, because quite often what we find is it's the contracting party or the project team that are providing the CDE. That's all very well and good, but the reality is at the end of that project, that contract is now going to disappear, that CDE is going to now disappear, and all the asset owner's left with is an offline archive of that information. So we're now seeing lots of our asset owners saying, okay, that's fine, deliver that project however you wish with whatever tools and CDEs you like, but at this point in time or progressively throughout the project, I want information coming into my environment that's structured in the way I want, named in the way I want, and I can then accept and approve that. And this is me progressively building up that digital asset record for that particular asset. Hopefully that makes sense, but again, we'll answer any questions as we go. So I'm not going to labour the point anymore around document management. Just one other thing to show you, if you do want to get into the realms of delivery management, so being able to say, okay, these are the deliverables that we expect, this is who we expect them from, this is when we expect it to be delivered. I think in all money it would be an information required schedule. Under the BIM banner, it's task information delivery plans or master information delivery plans. But essentially, it's you being able to say, this is what we expect, this is when we expect it, this is who we expect it from. Being able to register that information very simply in the system, via manually or via Excel, obviously, but then be able to start to report around the progress against that delivery. So we can see, well, general contractors late on a couple of files, but we've submitted and accepted some others. So again, real simple, but do not overlook the value of having a tracker, because most people try to do this in Excel, and there's a lot of manual work in being able to do that. Whereas in here, you put your Excel in the system, and then by virtue of people just uploading information, it's effectively ticking off documents as they've been submitted through that process. Okay, so fundamental there, being able to manage that, that information as it's coming through. Just going to move this webinar window over to the side here. Actually, I want to minimize. That's much better. So the next element of this, and obviously, you know, fundamental to the core of the presentation, is starting to look much more around the model aspect, but also the 2D plan aspect as well. So you've got an integrated environment here where people can upload and share the latest version of every model and every 2D plan. It's fully integrated into the document management area. So let's consider that models and plans are uploaded just as files, you know, they're submitted, they're version controlled, and at the appropriate time, we can then put those models and plans together into what we call model and plan assemblies. And typically, model and plan assemblies represent your built asset. So we'll use this very simple example of a campus building here. We can see all the individual models that relate to that. So we've got our architectural, electrical, structural, security systems, etc. And again, the way Kairnial, we develop Kairnial, we want this to be easy, right? So we don't want users having to install lots of complicated programs. We don't want to have to pay additional licensing within the system for this. So let's make it easy for users to be able to just select any model they wish and load that up in the browser. Virtues of live demonstration today, looks like my internet connectivity is not as it should be today, so apologies for the speed around that, but I assure you this is much quicker in real life. So we've now effectively got that model built and available to us, and if I want to start to look at various components, we can just isolate particular. Sorry, my webinar window keeps popping up and getting in my way. That's what I wanted to do. Just going to move that over here. So being able to effectively, you know, look at any level of detail we want within there, turning the layers on and off as easily as clicking a button here. So again, all happening within the browser. Got to be easy. If it's not easy, people won't use it. And that's really kind of our mantra, if you like, around this. But clearly, this is far more than visualization. Okay, visualization is just the start. So we want people to be able to get into the data that resides around these BIM components and these objects. So users are able to very easily select anything they wish. They're able to see then the various parameters that reside around that. And crucially, we're then allowing users to be able to expand on those parameters. So, for example, lots of our clients want to be able to capture cost-related information for cost of replacement against particular components. They want to capture scheduled-related information during construction of when things are planned to be installed, when they're actually installed. So you're actually able to add your own custom parameters into the data set here. So anything you see that's blue is a custom parameter. It's security driven, and it allows me just to add values subject to permissions. And that data can then become accessible to extract and take into our FM or asset-based tools if we want to, or becomes exposed to Power BI so we can start to run analytics and any type of report we want around that. So the ability to enrich the model during construction with the attribute information you want to then operate that asset, that's a really powerful capability within the system. Likewise, being able to link information to this. So we view the model very much as the point of access or the point of entry for all of this data. Okay, we're not asking people to put everything in the model, okay, because the reality is we end up with huge models that people can't use, people can't navigate. What we're doing is we're building connections between the model, objects, and all of these various different pieces of data that people are interested in. So in some respects, it's the updating the parameters. In other respects, it's simply linking documents and being able to attach those documents and then view those documents easily in the system. So if you want all your O&M manuals, all your specifications linked to this, you can absolutely do that. And again, crucially, these are the documents that are coming through the document management system that I've just shown earlier on. Alongside this, you've got your 2D plans. So extremely important that people can navigate, access, and review around the 2D information just as they can the BIM model as well, and the two sit hand in hand. From a processing perspective, being able to then have a register of all of your issues that you've got going on right now within that particular asset. And again, lots of our clients use our platform for sharing information, but then the value of having the information in their hand is we can start to manage the handover related processes using that data. So processes like defect management, for example. Lots of our clients, although the contractor does their own snagging and their own defect management, lots of our asset owners do their own defect management as well during the end of construction, because they want to ensure that effectively that asset meets the quality and compliance level that they're expecting. And then obviously moving on into operation, they can, and defect liability mode, they can actually capture those defects as well. So you've got a centralized, what we call observation register, but you can see we can categorize those observations into lots of different types, and one such type might be client handover defect. So effectively, I've got a full record of all the defects relating to the asset, and I'm able to put those defects through any type of process, review, closeout procedures. So we're not just recording, we're managing the defect process as well. Okay, so the question is now, well, okay, that's well and good, but how does all this translate out into the field? So now we're going to move across to the mobile. I'm going to show you how all of this now hangs together and how you start to generate that true digital asset record from a mobility that becomes accessible out in the field. So we're just going to stop here. We're going to go here and here. And we'll go full screen. Okay, so what you're essentially now looking at is you're now looking at my my iPad. So we provide mobile applications for phones, for tablets, whether they're Apple, whether they're Android, and we also have a Windows-based version. But the critical thing here is this is where I can access all of my built asset data for every one of my built assets. Okay, so I can search through the different assets that we've got, and crucially, I can then synchronize the data on those assets so that I'm able to go and work entirely remotely without the need of an internet connection. Okay, which is often hugely powerful. You can choose what data you want to synchronize. You know, we operate some extremely large assets. I don't need to take all that information. I may be just going to look at the basement level or the top 3 levels of the building. So we allow you to selectively synchronize the information that you want to take. And when we come into here, we've then got a modular look and feel to that application that reflects what we're seeing on the web platform. Okay, so we've got a dashboard overview of all of the open construction or operational related issues right now. So I talked earlier on about, you know, client handover defects. So we've got a summary dashboard around how many defects we've got, what status they're at, maybe who we've assigned them to, who we've related them back to, and how we're getting on with closing them out. We've got our BIM information, so our model assemblies that we just looked at in the web, which we will come back to shortly. We've got our 2D environment here, where I can again navigate my asset from a 2D perspective, which is hugely powerful, and we'll show the value of that shortly. I've got what we call an area management function. So if you look here, you're essentially looking at a list of rooms in the building, and I'm able to click into any one of those rooms. I'm able to see the status of that particular room, and it doesn't have to be a room. It can be a, you know, if this is a linear asset, it can be a particular location on that asset. But crucially, I've got a link to be able to then take me in to that particular space within the context of a 2D plan. So this is where kind of joining all of this information starts to add real value when you're out in the field. Alongside that, you've got your, what we call our observation register, but you may call your defect register or issue register. But essentially, there's all your problems that you've got right now, whether it's during construction, during handover, in operation, and down the left-hand side, being able to filter through any of those different parameters as you wish. Sat alongside that, you've then got your what we would term form-based processes. Good example of forms are inspections and checklist type processes. So lots of our clients want to do their own quality compliance checks and inspections as they're receiving the asset, as they're taking ownership of that. And again, that all goes into building up this digital quality and compliance record. So again, very important that you can structure the types of checks and inspections that you want to capture, that you can capture any type of information, that you can get the information around who's actually signing this information off, again, for that kind of robust quality record moving forward. And we'll kind of come back to that. We'll come back to that shortly. Last and by no means least, you've got all your documents there. So you've also got the latest revision of every document that's available on the mobile device. So I'm able to look at and have access to that information again directly out in the field. You know, and this kind of raises an important question. You know, what's the value, or maybe what's the risk in not having the latest information available during construction, during handover, during asset operations, and more importantly, not having accessibility? How easy is it to find that information? And that's what we'll start to look at now. I know there's quite a few questions here, but I'll answer these questions. I'll make sure I leave 10 minutes at the end, and I'll tackle all these questions then. So let's think about this from a building this data setup perspective. Okay, so we'll start simple here. As I said earlier, just because we're talking about BIM doesn't mean we have to talk about models, okay? Lots of our asset owners are able to leverage and get the power of data without necessarily the need for a BIM model, and I'll give an example now. So first and foremost, structure your asset however you wish. So I see my assets down the left-hand side. I see the different levels of that particular asset, in this example, a building. I can drill into that particular floor level, and we've then got high resolution 2D plans. We're not bothered about the format, PDF, DWG, we don't care. You can put them in and everything gets optimized and you can view this at high resolution. So first and foremost now, my users, my service teams, my FM teams, my operational teams have got access to the relevant floor plans, the latest revision of the floor plans. So we're only displaying the latest revision, but I've shown you in the web how we can manage version control, and that's what we're displaying out on here. Okay. Now, depends on the level of information you want. Here we've got an FF&E plan or architectural plan for this particular area, but you want more information. You want to know where all your fire alarm systems are. You want to understand where the plumbing related services are, where the fire sprinkler systems are. So you're able to start to build up that layers of information and overlay that within the system to provide a really detailed view of the layout of that asset right now. Again, fundamental, we need everybody to understand this is easy to navigate, easy to turn things on and off, because if it isn't, you can have all the information you want, but if people can't access it, they won't use it. Okay, and again, I'm going to stress the point, all of this is entirely offline. So we don't need to have internet connectivity to do this. You can have this on your iPad, you can be walking around wherever you want, and you've got the data available to you. So we can build up layers of information. We can identify within that level where we've got particular areas, rooms, and locations. So I showed you these earlier on, and if I just zoom out here, you'll see that that particular floor plan is cut into multiple levels. We can automate this from BIM models if we have one. We can do this manually if all you've got is 2D plans. And believe me, lots of our clients have existing portfolio, existing assets, and all they've got is a 2D PDF floor plan. In fact, some don't even have that. Some have just, so if you want to take a photograph of the fire evacuation plan, you can do that, and then we can start to draw things all over it and use that as a plan. Okay, so we can allow you to use the lowest common denominator of information. But the crucial thing is we're able to get people into that particular location that they want to work, that they want to do things in. So then we're able to, once we're in that position, we're able to manage processes. So it might be simple things like we just want to capture defects. Okay, all of this is configurable. So everything you're seeing here is tailored to what you need, your process, how you want to manage your quality and compliance checks during handover processes, all aligned to your particular standards, and all delivered at enterprise level so that you can replicate that across every asset that you're having delivered or that you're indeed operating. I'm not going to go through this in any level of detail, but essentially categorize your defects as you want, capture whatever data you want. Okay, so this is again extendable and configurable. Attach any photographs, but result now is we now have PIN attached to 2D plan that represents an issue that we have right now. So we've got a handover defect relating to that information. We can assign that to the contractor, and they're able to now take that through whatever closeout procedure we need to manage within the system. So you've got a really robust way of managing your handover related snags, defects, hazards, any other type of process you care to consider, even in a 2D environment. Kind of kicking that quality and compliance element on a little bit, you've also sat alongside that, as I mentioned earlier, your form-based checks, inspections, audits, any other type of form-based process we care to consider. So we're able to simply just take that room inspection, drag it into that room, and now we're presented with the form as I showed you earlier on, tailored to however you wish. It's your forms, it's your process, it's your workflow. And again, this is all about capturing data, capturing a quality and compliance evidential record that we can then keep, retain, and evolve throughout the life of that asset. Just before we move into the world of models or BIM, if you like, for most people, let's talk about how you could leverage, how can we get data relating to objects, even if we don't have BIM models, okay? So one of the things we allow people to do is we allow people to build up an essential or critical maintainable asset record. So down the left-hand side, what you've got here is an asset, or what we call an equipment register, an equipment library. So you can predefine the types of equipment that you want to capture data against. You can predefine the data that you want to capture against those types of equipment. And then quite easily, even without BIM, and let's just add sprinkler systems on here so it makes more sense, we can start to identify those critical and maintainable components. So I can just drag and drop very simply that type of equipment or component onto a 2D plan. And what that now does is it creates a unique instance, in this example, of that fire sprinkler. So, and that fire sprinkler has data. So you'll see we've got a model reference, we've got replacement cost, we've got the manufacturer's data. So all of this can be imported into the system, but actually when we're installing, when we're commissioning, when we're doing that check, that's the point maybe where we capture the serial number for that particular piece of installed equipment. So we can put security around the data that you want to capture in terms of visibility and who can input that data. We can then allow that piece of equipment or component to be managed through, again, a fully configured install, delivery, install, commission, startup, check, inspection process. So again, it's all configured to your needs. And then also attached to that equipment, that's where you link your checklist and your forms. So it's the same forms that I've just shown you, but linked directly now to that piece of equipment. And again, that now provides a really robust quality and compliance record of the installation, commissioning, and check process for that type of equipment, or for that instance of equipment that will live for forevermore. And if we want to continue doing inspections against that, we can have different types of processes that get attached into that. And again, all available without BIM models. Okay, we can do all of this just off 2D plans, which is huge, hugely powerful. So now we're going to talk, or the final part of this is to show what this looks like from a BIM perspective, from a models perspective, and then we'll kind of open this up for questions. So let's get into the models here. So I mentioned models and plans, assemblies. Let's load up all the layers. So this is exactly what we were looking at, but on the web platform. You can see my different layers down the left-hand side. Again, let's stress, all available entirely offline. And by doing that means we can render this, display this really easily. And you see the kind of the performance that you'll get here. And I know obviously I'm showing you quite a simple model here just to keep things easy. We're regularly working with clients that are generating extremely complex models, very high density of objects, upwards of 6-7 gigabytes of information, all able to perform at the same level that you're seeing right here. And again, I would welcome you to challenges on that. So if you want to look at what it could look like, very happy to discuss that with you offline, and we can look at maybe perhaps putting your data in there and showing you how that would be reflected. So take things away. as easily as you bring it in, being able to navigate around there, being able to select all of those objects. Just again, it's got to be easy. People feel comfortable just being able to click on things and it just opens up the data. Being able to isolate components really easily within the model as well. So we'll allow you to filter on any parameter you want. Being able to capture and update that parameter data that we talked about earlier on. Again, all subject to permission. We don't want everybody being able to add this information in there, but the crucial data we can do. Being able to link your defects, your inspections against there. So we allow you to snag and put defects against objects in the model, exactly as I showed you in the 2D world. And also being able to attach those same forms, checklists and inspections. Okay, so again, whether this is 2D, whether this is 3D, you're able to kind of build up this connected digital record of information that then becomes extremely valuable when we move into operational phase. And the crucial element of that is it's progressive. So it doesn't just happen at completion, it happens during construction. It's a progressive delivery of information when this works best. But here's the reality. No good having all this complexity here, all of this stuff connected, if your end users are unable to navigate this in the first place. So I want to go into the ground floor level in a particular room. That's it. That's not particularly difficult, not particularly easy without some level of training or practice. Okay, when we're doing that within the model. So the way that you solve that problem, or the way we solve that problem, is we give people what they feel comfortable with. And what people feel comfortable with is a 2D plan. So if you're very comfortable being able to say, okay, that's where I want to go in there. So actually what we can do is we just drag the camera and we go into that space and we can now navigate through that asset however we see fit. And again, we can now click on things, we can select all those components, we can look at the documents that are attached to that particular component within there. And by having that connection between the 2D world and the BIM model, it really opens up the opportunity for people to access what quite often is data that's locked into BIM models. What we tend to find is BIM's delivered very well during design, and it's starting to now come into construction, but there is a real disconnect on most construction sites with accessibility of BIM information. So allowing that to be accessible on site during construction, allowing the processes that are happening from a quality and compliance perspective to be visible in both the model, as you see on the left. In fact, let's just come to a part where you can actually see that. So we've got, let's just zoom in, we've got the defect available to us in the model. Quite sure why I don't be able to can't click that today, but we've got the defect available in the left hand side, and we've got then that same defect available to us on the right hand side as well. So it's bi-directional. If people are more comfortable looking at this from a 2D perspective, they can go and look at it in the 2D plans, but it's reflective in the model as well. So it's an extremely powerful way of being able to connect your data, but then being able to navigate and access that data as well. And there's additional things we can bring to that. So for example, I'm very conscious of the time. Let's just bring this camera around here a little bit, see if I can make this work. If I just okay, so there's more advanced things we can do. So for example, we could generate a QR code for every object, or you can select to generate QR codes for relevant objects directly from the model. I'm just going to put that on that side, and I'm going to put this on this side so you can kind of see what happens. And then what I'm able to do is I'm able to select the QR code scanner in the mobile app, and I should be able to then go and scan that QR code. And you can see that it navigates us to that particular object, both in the 2D plan, but also in the model. And then we're into what I've just shown you in terms of being able to add data, connect information, link documents, link checks, linked inspections, etc., etc. Okay, enough demoing today. I'm going to stop there. Let's answer any questions that we may have for the remaining 8 minutes of this.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That was great, Richard. And we have got a few questions already coming in. So far away anymore as we've got we've got about 10 minutes, but so yeah, the first question comes from James actually. He said, do any of your clients use the system to capture and manage asbestos information?
I'd need to check. I think we've got a client. I think we've got more than one client in France that is using that, and the way that they're using it is from a 2D perspective, being able to identify that as an equipment type. So I showed you a fire sprinkler being able to drag and drop onto a plan. In reality, we can do unit objects, we can do linear objects like walls, and we can do area-based objects. So, you know, maybe we decide, okay, we've got asbestos in that section of that roof. Being able to identify that on the plan as an area and say what type it is and capture some data and capture the status and then attach checklists and inspections against that. We've definitely got clients that are doing that in our French region right now.
Cool. Okay. I hope that helps, James. And I've got another James Gregory. He's asked, do you have to manually attach documents to modeled elements, or can association between the two be automated?
So it's right now we do it through what we call parameter linking. So rather than you being saying, okay, link that document to that window, what you can do is you can say link this document to any object that meets this criteria. So maybe it's link it to all of the windows that meet this particular dimension, type, standard. So it's a much quicker way of being able to link. We are actually investigating being able to link that using AI technology. So we have an AI-driven search engine in one of our sister companies that we're looking to leverage. And what we hope that would allow us to do is effectively automate the linking based on it looking in documents, finding references, and automatically linking it. So you could, you know, have a pretty much complete attachment, let's say to 95%, without having to do any manual intervention. But that's something we're looking at probably as a Q1 next year, I would imagine, certainly next year.
Cool. Okay, brilliant. I've got another question that's just come in from, I think, Leah. Is the asset management process by the asset owner similar to a CAFM system?
No, we're not. So we're not positioning ourselves as a CAFM system. What we tend to find is that a lot of FM based systems, certainly the bigger ones, they're not geared up, or they're not geared up to display and show the BIM models, the 2D. They're designed to manage the FM related processes. Okay, so our view is we provide that centralized single source of the latest version, the latest as built, the latest as installed information in our web and mobile environment. And then what we do is we allow that data to be connected to an FM system, so that, you know, we've done an FM related activity against this sprinkler system. Why shouldn't you be able to just provide a link to the documentation in our platform, or the model, or the objects? So when I talked right at the outset about connectivity, that's one of the areas where we often get involved in being able to connect ourselves as the data source to whatever asset system or FM system happens to be. Now, I will add to that, Think Project has introduced in the UK recently a new asset management system. So if that's of interest, worth looking at, and clearly we'll be building more connectivity around that. But very happy to discuss how do we connect with those type of systems, but we're not here to try and replace that.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, we can connect people afterwards as well, so there's more questions on that as well. Someone's just asked, Rachel's just said, can we have a recording of this presentation? So yes, you will get that sent to you from Think Project, so it's all been recorded, so don't worry. Yeah, I've got another question here about the mobile formats that are supported by the software, and does it work offline?
So yes and yes. So we're in terms of mobile systems, iOS, tablet, phone, Android, tablet, phone, Windows, Surface type devices. We have an app for, and yes, all of them are designed to work entirely offline. Is our preference, and you're synchronizing as you need to.
Brilliant. Okay. Good. What model? Okay, another question William has asked. I think it's probably our last one. What model file types can be used with the online viewer?
So we support IFC, we support Revit, NWD, so Navisworks NWD formats, although need to be a little bit careful with them because Navisworks spits out huge models, lots of geometry on them, so there is a performance limit around NWDs. But open standard IFC, Revit, and later this year we expect to do DGN format as well, because under Think Projects now, Think Projects traditional client base is actually infrastructure-based asset owners, and they have a lot of DGN format information. So we're going to do that as well.
Brilliant. Okay, I think that's perfectly wrapped up to the hour. So the last question is actually from Patrick, has asked about, is there a presentation or slide deck that can be sent out? But I'm guessing you're going to contact people after this webinar anyway. So perhaps there's information that can follow onto them.
Yeah, I mean, again, the slide deck, so there'll be the video will be sent out, a link to the video will be sent out, and obviously the slides are there. Very happy to share the slide deck that we presented with you, no problem.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much, Richard, and perfectly on the hour. Really appreciate that, and I think we're going to keep an eye out on the Construction Buzz emails and webinar emails, because there's another one of these coming up soon. So yeah, look forward to that, and thank you very much. Have a good day.
No problem. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers now. Bye bye.